Alright, I'm back. That did not work. My camera ran out of space because that 18 minutes took up 2.8 gigabytes. So that's not going to work. Anyway, so yeah, my intention is not to be offensive when I speak about magic and my frustrations with past experiences trying to learn about magic. Just me being honest, just being honest about what I've found, what I've seen, and it's not to say that all of the beings that I see teaching or talking about magic are disingenuous or not upfront about that. In fact, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Nichols. Um, I'm not going to remember the dude's name, but he teaches magic, and he's very upfront. Same thing with what is it, LVX 777. Um, Travis Magus. I'm not getting people's names right. I think I'm getting them close. So, if I can remember, I'll put those in the description. Though I should remember because I always watch these videos back. But I'll put their names and channels in the description. They're very upfront, and I do think that when you know what you're going into when it comes to those types of disciplines, magic disciplines and practices, I think they can be helpful if that's what you're intending. If that's what you're looking for, then of course it's beneficial. And so those are two that to me seem very, very knowledgeable. I still watch their channels, actually, because I still gain something from much of what they say, even just on a level of study, you know. I just did a community post today, actually sharing one of Travis's posts about the Baphomet symbol and the misconceptions and straight out lies that have been perpetuated because of a lot of things, actually, not just the church, but the Satanic Church also ruined that symbol. It's an esoteric symbol. It holds a lot of hermetic symbolism and esoteric symbolism. It is layered in its presentation, so the more that you know, the more that you'll be able to pick out from specific iterations of that symbol, I'll say, because there are newer ones that are affiliated with the Satanic Church that's pretty much just a goat-headed being. All of the esoteric and hermetic principles have been stripped from that symbol, which is very shitty, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Anyway, so yeah, those are the two things that I notice, the two aspects that to me have a lot to do with the lack of actual magic energy that I do believe has been and will be on this realm. Again, it has been on this realm, it will be on this realm again. I think it has a lot to do with the current status, the current setup of this realm and the energies that are here right now. It also has to do with a level of consciousness, I think. I think that the consciousness is so low right now that, vibrational energy is so low right now that it's just not something that can be attained or achieved or, as I said before, sustained, And, to add even another level, if I didn't already add enough levels, I still operate under the personal discovery, the personal conclusion that this is a construct. This is a simulated construct, not in totality, just like I said in the last video, but a very complex thing to explain. It's not purely immaterial, but it is also not completely material. And so the concept of simulation, simulacrum, matrix, whatever you want to call it, is a very complex, thing to explain or to make sense of. So all those things, in my opinion, have something to do with the fact that magic is not what it has been before. But again, I do think it will return to that. And so the things that you'll find when looking into magic, I think a good representation came from a movie that I said I was going to talk about, but after watching the movie, I decided to put it in this video because, doing a whole video about this movie is just not worth it. There's not enough there. But I do think it is a good movie, and I do think there's a representation there that's worth talking about. Recently, I think last year, maybe the year before that, it might have been 2022. 2022, 2023, they did a remake, a reimagination of the Hellraiser movie. It is really good. I like the movie, but I do believe, as someone has already said, I don't remember her channel name. I have too many channels I have to try to remember and put into the description. But I did share her philosophical breakdown of the overall Hellraiser kind of universe, and she very eloquently broke down how, those original movies were very, very profound. And as time went along, capitalism stepped in and it became more about business than it became about the story. I think that kind of plays a part in this new movie also, but it's still not a bad movie. It's a good movie as far as like entertainment goes, and you can still see some esoteric stuff in there. Specifically when it comes to this conversation, the concept of Hellraiser and the Cenobites, I viewed them in the lens of being like tricksters, ultra-dimensional tricksters, and I've talked about that before in multiple videos, but this is a really good representation of that. And by that, I don't just, ultra-dimensional tricksters, jinn, or genies, daemons, something in my eye, sorry, or even angels. And I know that may be offensive or disturbing to some, but it's not intended. And within that same statement, I won't preface that or take it back. I do mean angels. When you look into Solomonic magic and certain practices like the Qalipoth or the HGA, the Holy Guardian Angel, like if you look into accounts of actually trying to do those things, summon those things, you'll find horrible, terrible things, horrible accounts, horrible cases because people lost their lives or took other beings' lives. These are things that are, they have the potential to be very detrimental, both mentally and physically. And it's not just to say that it's these energies that people take on in these hypnagogic states and in these psychedelic states that they enter into. It's multiple things, some of it's just ego or bloodlust or lust, and malevolence. Just like most of this conversation is very complex, but that includes the invoking of angels, or what is claimed to be angels, because many times, and this is kind of why I said ultra-terrestrials versus saying deities and beings, is because many times I think, they don't understand those technologies that they're using. Because, one instance of some aspects, anyway, I won't say the whole ritual, but some aspects of a ritual is to, you're drawing sigils all over your body. You're repeating incantations that you, at this point, very likely don't know what any of that shit means. There's a lot of dangerous aspects to this. And one of the reasons that I talk about this sometimes is because I see many beings that are longing for meaning, they're longing for head change, they're longing for a change, or they want to manipulate this reality and have dominion over this place, or dominion over, beings, or whatever it may be. And they get desperate. And they start doing shit that they don't really have the patience or wherewithal to study. And so, especially around now, beings can't even watch a full video. If I do an hour and a half long plus video, I know that there are bots that take down the watch time, the average watch time. But there are also I know that, that's why TikTok is a thing. That's why Instagram Reels are a thing. That's why Shorts are a thing. And there is an aspect of these companies creating that, but there's not a lot of pushback. If it wasn't working, if people were demanding longer forms of stuff, then that's what the companies would appease. And so, there's not a lot of patience when it comes to many things, and I definitely think there's less people reading books, actually turning pages, which not only leads to a lack of understanding and, a lack of adept, being adept in these things, but it also leads to the capability of heavy editing and censorship, manipulation. Same thing that happened with, the Bible and many other religious texts. These things get manipulated because those beings are in power, so they can manipulate it, but also, opportunity and laziness, speaking more recently anyway. Many of us, including myself, are potentially reading books, but also listening to audiobooks. And for many works, that's fine. It's very likely just like it is in print. But with older texts and more dangerous texts, meaning things that can lead to gnosis, apotheosis, actual intelligence instead of the semblance or illusion of intelligence, these things are seen as dangerous by, the powers that be. And so it's within their best interest it's within their interest. I won't say it's their best interest, because in my opinion, their best interest is to kind of turn the other direction and try to work with us, because we're reaching a changing point when things are gonna, the changing of the guard. Things are about to change up very drastically, and they're going to be looking for, most likely, they're going to be looking for pity and understanding and whatnot. And many of us are not going to be willing to give that very much. But, so it's in their interest to change these books, these texts, and to edit history and to create campaigns of lying and social engineering and manipulation, psychological operations, manipulation. Again, very, very complex situation. And so, just like anything else, magic is affected by that. And so I would say that's another aspect of why magic does not work correctly. And looking at the kind of wider scope of that, not only is the energy, in my opinion, not present right now, it's not accessible right now. Many of the physical aspects are tainted, meaning, if you're doing a ritual or a spell and you need physical ingredients or objects, many times those things have pollutants, or they're genetically modified, or these things matter, and intent also matters. And I've heard some that practice, I won't say use magic, they practice magic, and there's a distinction I'll talk about later with that. But I've heard those teachers say, oh, well, it doesn't matter if it's the actual thing, it's the intent that matters. And I can see that being, possibly somewhat true, but to insist that that is completely true makes zero sense. If you're using ingredients, actual ingredients, your intent does not change that ingredient. It might have when there was real magic energy, when there was energy that could be used in that sense. For instance, more plasma in the overall atmosphere. Maybe you could have changed things around with intent. Goes all the way down to your DNA structure and your mental capacity, and lots of things. It has to do with lots of things, but currently, no, I don't think that that's true. I think you need not only do you need the real things, but you actually need them to be pure. You need them to be real. You need them to be not genetically modified, not filled with impurities and chemicals and poisons, because that changes the effects. Look at alchemy, at least the physical sense of alchemy. If you don't have, actual sulfur, then what's that going to do to your end result? What's that going to do to the thing that you're trying to synthesize, right? Magic is the same way, same thing. You never know what, and people play around with these things haphazardly. Whether and some know it, some don't. Some are doing it intentionally. They're like, all right, well, I can't get, dragon's breath, so I'll just use this thing. It smells like dragon's breath, whatever. That's not how you do magic. That's not how you do anything. You can't cook like that. You can't do anything like that. So the teachers that say shit like that are kind of disingenuous, including one that I have a lot of reverence for. Bobby Hemmett would say, if you don't have this, just use this. That shit didn't work, man. It doesn't work that way. And so I digress pretty hard, but the movie Hellraiser, the most recent iteration of it, and you could almost say just any of them, to be honest, except for the more crazy dumb ones where it was just nuts and they were just trying to come up with a horror movie instead of stick to the world building and the universe that was created in that Hellraiser universe. It's specifically in the newer movie, they go back to the concept of a wayward person chasing the dragon, in a sense. There's a rich man who says that he has experienced all that life had to offer, and he was looking for new experiences. And so he gets Pandora's box, and he thinks he understands the grimoire. He thinks he understands what that box has to offer, what it holds. And when he succeeds with sacrificing people using this box, and essentially solves the puzzle, when Hellraiser comes to him and asks what he chooses, because there are different things you can choose, he chooses sensation. Because he thinks he's about to be in ecstasy and probably feel like he's on drugs 24/7, complete, just good feelings, and probably feels like he's going to be, getting blown by the universe perpetually, and all these things that he's coming up with his brain, imagining. But he doesn't understand Hellraiser and the Cenobites. That's not how they operate. Their view is that pain is transformative. Pain is, the most extreme and the most potent version of alchemy. And so you transform yourself through the sensation of pain, through the torture, through the, pretty literal sense of like torture. And that's why they look the way they do, because they're doing that. That is what they do. And so when he accomplishes solving the puzzle, using others as stepping stones to get there, killing other people using this Pandora's box, they give him the sensation that he asked for, and he cannot die. He's constantly in excruciating pain and cannot die. He has this thing in his chest that moves and like pulls on his sinews every however many seconds or minutes. And so he's in this giant mansion that he is made in the form of a Pandora's box. The security system kind of looks like the Pandora's box, and it's made as almost like a temple to Hellraiser. And after he finishes this, he realizes how ridiculous he was to think that he even understood these immortal, timeless, completely on a different dimension beings. And he misinterpreted the text. He didn't understand what they were saying. And I think that a lot of beings are doing that currently and don't know what they're fucking with. They don't know what they're playing around with. Some are just doing psychology, and at the very least have the discernment to say, you know what, that specific ritual sounds like I shouldn't fuck with it. But many just don't respect or understand what they're fucking around with. And so, I hear people talking about doing all kinds of rituals. Once again, including, Bobby Hemmett, Brother Panic. I hear people talk about doing rituals that are potentially like, when you evoke or invoke spirits and demons and all this other stuff, you'll see some teachers tell you, like, you have nothing to fear. You can talk shit to them. That's how you show your dominion over them and whatnot. And to a degree, that's true. But at the same time, all it takes is for you to doubt that for a second. You most likely, 99.999%, probably don't even come close to fathoming these entities. It doesn't matter how much you read about them. It doesn't matter how many accounts of others dealing with them you get, because if nothing else, you don't know that shit's real. Look how many people lie about their exploits with magic and with metaphysical shit in general. If you're really honest with yourself and remove the whole, I just want something to be real, I just want something to give more meaning to this, and so on and so on and so on. If you take all that and you're real with yourself about it and you're objective about it, look how many lie about most of that shit. And what I see a lot of the time, for one reason or another, beings don't stress test each other on those things. Whether they're trying to be like polite, or they don't want to argue, or they don't want to offend the person, or they feel sorry for them, or they want to belong to what they belong to, so they don't want to rock the boat. Doesn't matter what it is. There's a great deal, a majority of beings that are lying about most or a lot of what they say when it comes to their metaphysical capabilities, their metaphysical experiences. And then all that is without adding the manipulations and technologies that are present in this realm right now. Not a cult. They are open, they are patented, they are disclosed, they are declassified. And, there's this thing that I've noticed, that I've spoken about recently, where it's essentially confirmation bias. Like, you will reference declassified and disclosed CIA documents and programs and patents, U.S. patents, and interviews with old CIA operatives and agents and scientists and NASA scientists. But then when those things don't work in your favor, well, that's just a lie. You know, I don't understand that. I don't understand that. You know, it's you have to be objective when you fuck around with stuff like this, and I think that there's a lack of that, with specifically with magic. And you know, I have a video talking about Crowley and how he is very similar to that character in that he started off very gung-ho. He's credited with summoning, what was it, Lamb? I think Lamb is the name of the entity that looks a lot like a fucking alien, but he said it was some kind of demon. And, you know, building an order off of that, off of, you know, ceremonial magic, ritual magic. And I'm not going to go into the entire story, but, you know, there's a video if you want to go listen to the story of, just one story of something Crowley did in a so-called ritual. And from what I can surmise, the dude just took a young man out to the desert and did stuff to him. And not, you know, not just beat him up, not just sexual stuff, real messed up situation. And that's one instance of the types of things that can sometimes happen when you join a magic order or do magic with crazy people. You know what I mean? Not to laugh at the young man that happened to, but that's what I mean, though, is like, not only do you need to study these things thoroughly to even get an understanding of if you want to actually participate or not, there are many accounts of beings from 1400s, 1500s, 1600s, 1700s, where people did a ritual, a ceremony, or you know, ritual. And you know, for instance, I was just listening to an account Mr. Mythos found, and they were doing a ritual. They got up to a point where the person leading was supposed to say an incantation or repeat an incantation, a short incantation 3 times. He said it one time and blacked out, and then woke up the next day, and he was alive, one other person was alive but unconscious, and everyone else was dead. You know, these are the types of things that people are just doing. They get a grimoire and they're like, cool. I don't mean to laugh, but that shit is fucking wild. You are nuts for that, you know? And grimoires are very, you can learn a lot from them. You can also, you know, just because, so I said earlier that I believe that the energy is not available here at this moment for magic to sustain itself at the level that it has before. But that doesn't mean that those ultra-terrestrial beings do not still have their capabilities. So you can use a sigil, or you can do a ritual, or you can drink a concoction that you come up with yourself or from a grimoire, and you can still very much be affected by these deities and these energies and these beings, and have very little to no discourse. Like, you can't do shit back. And if you are one of the many that show reverence and veneration to an Abrahamic deity, they talk about, like, it's very likely, if you were to really study that text and remove yourself from it, remove your faith from it, you would be able to see that there are some inconsistencies. And those inconsistencies point to that specific God of those texts not being who it claims to be, which is very, very much in line and in common with these lower beings that people invoke or evoke in these rituals. They claim to be one thing sometimes, but they're not that thing. Some of them claim to be angels or holy guardian angels. Then they do stuff to people, and bad things happen in their lives, or they get them to do bad things. Sometimes they give you stuff. Many used demons or angels, didn't really matter from what it seems like, to treasure hunt. They would use them to sniff out treasure. But then bad things would happen to them once they got the treasure. If you need to do an exorcism on your treasure once you get it, maybe don't hunt the treasure. You know what I mean? Unless you are 100% sure that you or whoever your magician is in your party, because they hunt treasure in parties still to this day. If you're not 100% positive that your magician can do that, can actually exorcise whatever's attached to that treasure, you should think twice about it, I think. Because if whatever entity is willing to help you sniff that treasure out, especially if it's not asking you for a sacrifice or to give it something, does that sound like it's on the up and up to you? You know? In any sense of these words, we're made in their image. And if you go up to a random person right now and say, hey, will you take me to all of your money? Or, that's a hard example. You don't need an example. Go up to someone and ask him for some shit and see if they just do it or if they ask you for something in return at the very least. Because a lot of the time they'll just fucking tell you no. They don't give a fuck what you want to give them. They'll just tell you no. Many times you need to know that person for them to do that. You know? I'm speaking about this because I'm seeing so many being... There's active campaigns to get people to do things right now. And it's not just cults. Because some cults don't do magic shit. They don't dabble in magic at all. Some of them don't do any religious stuff. Which I would almost argue those are the better ones, the better cults, the ones that aren't trying to get you to worship some weird shit you don't understand. For instance, a lot of people are doing Solomonic magic right now. So, the 72 Goetia, the Holy Guardian Angel, all that shit that you think is divinity and rooted in Abrahamic goodness, and you can control it because you have God on your side, and all you need to do is utilize the name of God, or Gabriel or Michael or whoever. Do you know what happened to Solomon at the end? Do any of you that are doing that shit, do you read to the end of that story, or do you just say Solomon had a ring and he fucking told them what to do and they did it? Because that's not the end of the story. Solomon was slowly corrupted by these entities that called themselves demons or angels, and he ended up lusting after a woman, and because of that, he asked these entities to help him get the woman, and ended up in league with, which means worshiping, Moloch and Remphan. Who is Remphan? If you're on my Instagram, if you follow my Instagram, I made a post about Remphan and the star of Remphan and the temple of Remphan, and who follows them. Who follows him is the Canaanites. The Canaanites follow Remphan. And also, if you want to be technical, there are different tribes, different clans within that group that I'm not going to say the name of. The Canaanites, there are Khazarians, there are lots of different factions that essentially are worshiping Remphan, Moloch, Baal, different disagreeable entities that many are arguing right now whether these were real entities, physical entities or not. I kind of don't care what anyone has to say. They were physical entities. Look at look at the descriptions of their personalities. They had too many traits. If these were just, you know, if these were solely egregores or representations of stuff instead of actually being beings, then why do they have so many aspects that resemble human personality traits? Why do they have actual personality traits? What would be the purpose in them having those personality traits? You know, I would just that would be my first thing in a debate with someone who's like, these aren't real beings, they didn't actually exist. And that goes for a lot of it, to be honest. It's not to say that much of it hasn't been perverted. Jesus, the concept of Jesus was Joshua, not Jesus. And J didn't exist, so it would be, Yah, Yeshua, Yah. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's fucked up, sure, but then what of all those personality traits? You can't get away from that. All of these other arguments make not one fuck. But again, Solomon is just one story, and there are so many of these stories that's a very popular like horror trope for horror movies, is someone who gets mystified with magic lust and they end up in a real fucked situation because they couldn't keep a handle on their shit. That's, and it's not to say that, I guess one of the main things that I'm saying, I'm going way out of my way out of line with my notes. I had like a little rubric, not a rubric. I had a little outline to go by, but fuck that. Many end up with what essentially you could call a magic lust. And if you really look at most of these situations, they're not doing magic. They're being attacked slowly or taken advantage of or attached to, really. Most of it's parasitic. It's not even symbiosis. It's not even a symbiotic relationship. They're doing magic. Something notices that you're trying to do magic. You're not actually doing it, but they are like, oh, I hear my name. Who's calling my name? Or, oh, someone just drew my symbol all over their body. Let me go see who's doing that. And then when they find you, they see what you want and then do stuff to ingratiate you to them and then corrupt you. Not all the time, but many, many times. And what I will say is I'm sure that there are some benevolent beings, potentially, at the very least, middle of the board, gray, as I attain or attempt to be myself. Middle of the board can go either way, but I think more times than not, like I said, they're beings just like you. They also want things. So if you're not offering anything that they want, if they don't want you to sacrifice yourself or to sacrifice another person, what can you give them? What can you give the... So probability says that what you're actually going to end up interacting with is not good, right? Because they usually want something. They might not tell you that up front, but they usually want something. And this goes in line with that thing that I keep bringing up, because I think it's really important to keep bringing it up. That whole they have to tell you because of cosmic law shit is not true. Stop saying that. That's not true. You need to get that out of your head. There are plenty of things going on right now that you know nothing about and you won't know because they don't have to fucking tell you. I dig for the shit that I know about, and I barely know anything. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that I barely know anything when it comes down to brass tacks, when it comes down to the, that's what I'm doing, is trying to build a theory. If I knew then I wouldn't be building a theory. If any of us knew anything, then we wouldn't feel these things that we feel. We wouldn't feel out of place or wonder who we are or what we are or what this place is or any of that shit. So do they really have to, are they telling us anything? Or do you just think that because someone keeps saying it to you over and over again? They gotta tell you it's cosmic law. Where? Show me that. Show me where they're telling you anything, really. You know? They can't lie. What? What are you talking about? You know? That shit really bothers me. People keep saying that shit to me. It really fucking bothers me. And then when I say these things to them, they get upset. And it's like, I'm not trying to upset you. I'm trying to prove a point. Show me where they're adhering to some kind of law. Show me that. Because I promise you I'll disprove that. You know? Not being a dick, just saying. Anyway, so yeah. There's ceremonial magic, there's ritual magic. I mean, really, like I said, the lines have blurred between all of this shit. Within the desperation of what I think what's happening is everyone keeps reading these accounts and these texts, and you're like, man, I want to be able to do that, or why can't we do that? Why don't I see that? And everyone's just kind of doing chaos magic, whether they say they are or not. That's what everyone is doing, because even those that say, I just do Solomonic magic. Well, more times than not, they're not just doing Solomonic magic. They may be doing some divination, which is like astrology stuff, numerology, gematria. If you're doing any of that, that is also considered to be magic in some circles at the very least. Divination, depending on who you talk to, is magic. So, the difference between the two has been blurred, but ceremonial magic is what Crowley was doing, which can very quickly turn into some shit, Ritual magic is... I guess there's still a difference. Ritual magic you can do by yourself. You're not really doing sacrifices too much and stuff like that. I guess it's one of those things where, like, you can do you do rituals in ceremonial magic, but you're not necessarily doing ceremonial magic just because you're doing a ritual, is one way to think about it, I guess. But, the concept of a ritual has become very conflated anyway, because from a technical... I'm not going to do that technical thing where it's like, well, if you wake up and eat breakfast, that's a ritual. Of course, that's stupid, though, to bring into anything more than brand new to these studies and this research. Obviously, that's a ritual, but if you do a love spell, you're not doing ceremonial magic, but it's still dangerous. Most that practice magic and try disciplines will tell you, like, in fact, that's a good example. When beings do love magic, most of the time it backfires and some fucked up shit happens. Crazy shit happens. Even if it's just the person is now obsessed with you and will kill you if you don't love them back. Like, that's not what you wanted. So, you know what I mean? Like, you really have to understand that there's another aspect to a lot of these things that it's not possible for it to go right, because the energy is off. The energy is wrong. And I don't really hold necessarily anybody... I don't hold that against anybody, because I think this is a theory for me. But I do think that it's right. And I think that most, even teachers, the adepts that are out there, those that consider themselves to be masters, who I would say are not masters. If anyone calls themselves a master and they can't show you some cool shit, I don't care what they say. I don't care if they're like, well, I can't show you because it's secret. Well, then fuck you. You're not a master to me. They will tell you that, you're just not doing enough, or you did the ritual wrong, or, whatever. But most magic doesn't work right now. And hasn't worked for a long time. And then there are aspects of things that people think are one thing and they're another thing. Like a lot of it's technology, weaponized technology. I actually just... Should I talk about that? Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll say this. I have an interview scheduled, or I am scheduling. I'm in contact with him right now. With someone that is definitely bigger than my platform. As far as like what I thought I would be able to schedule or accomplish. And he's someone who's very, very knowledgeable on those types of weaponized technologies. And the things that they can do resemble magic. So, and I've said this before, there are many beings that think that they're talking to ancestors, or they think that there's an angel talking to them, or God's talking to them. And what I would say to that, not trying to be offensive or take anyone's light from them or anything like that, because I can't tell you whether that's what's happening to you or not, but I would say that it's more than probable, very likely that you are not talking to or hearing what you think you are, unless it can show you some shit. Matter of fact, that's a good test. Ask it to float something in your room. And even then, that's not really that solid either. There's not really a good way. I'm just going to say that. There's not a good way to figure that one out. But there are lots of technologies that make it very difficult to be able to discern the difference between technology and magic. Because essentially, if you went back even 50 years and showed some of the shit that can be done right now, they'd be like, oh, what the fuck? They might not call it magic depending on what it is. Go back and show them a phone. And I guess, show them... If you showed yourself making a call from the phone, they'd be like, all right, so it's a computer phone, I guess? That's so stupid. But, I guess go back a little bit further. Go to the 40s, the 30s or the 40s. And very potentially they'd be like, what the fuck, that's magic. If you are to believe history as it is taught to us, is what I'll preface that with. Because honestly, that's why I'm kind of not going back farther than that, because I think, like I've said, you go back far enough, they had better technology than we have now. A good example of that would be Tesla. A lot of the things that Tesla accomplished and studied, not only did it resemble magic, because many didn't and don't understand the concept of like plasma and electromagnetism and free energy and shit, but like the way that those things came to him also could come off like magic, because I don't remember if he had dreams or if his plans and ideas came to him during the day. But either way, he didn't study those things directly so much. I'm sure he did do some schooling, but many of those ideas and tweaks and stuff like that, they came to him in visions and in like what a lot of y'all are calling downloads now. But this is at a time when we didn't have all these 5G towers and things that can broadcast shit into your fucking head. There wasn't a lot of that at all. There were radio towers, and they were few and far between. So, that still could be technology, but they definitely weren't. They weren't steering the dude wrong. They were helping him. If that was the case, if he was not actually having some divine intervention, they were helping, not harming. Another example would be Da Vinci. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be conflating the two of these, but if I'm not mistaken, Da Vinci would see the plans and layout of an invention, and he could like, I think I'm thinking about Tesla on this one. Either way, one of them could see the plans of a thing in 3D and like touch it and move stuff, you know, with his mind or with his mind's eye. And I see some talk about stuff like that. As a matter of fact, you know, there have been stories recently of beings who have similar stories to that. And there is kind of a renaissance of at least inventions being disclosed more. I don't know if there are more inventions happening, but there are more being widely displayed. Now, whether they get out and we can use them or not, that's a different story. So yeah, technology can also come off like magic. But I mean, what I would say is those things, those technologies, and those things that can be utilized, they come off more like magic than anything else, right? Currently, anyway. And for a long while, you know, going retroactively, that is. But we are kind of returning to it, you know. There's the talk of free energy. There's a lot of stuff being R&D'd right now by the public, not by private entities, not by the private sectors, not necessarily by governments, although they are doing all that stuff too. But it seems like we as a society are starting to fuck around with these things ourselves, as we did in the past. You know, there's lots of video of civilians, you know, not military people, not directly anyway, scientists, professional scientists or anything, just people making shit, and they made lots of cool stuff. If those videos are to be trusted, I kind of do though. Just using intuition and discernment, I do think that, like I said, we have a cyclical thing going, and we're just being taught that before us, everyone was idiots. I don't think that's true, man. I just don't see that shit being true. If you actually go back and look at, you know, accounts of different time periods, and you weed out the ones that are sponsored, whether it be by the Rockefeller system or the black nobility system or the Roman Catholic Church, which is basically the same thing, Khazarians and all that shit. If you can weed out all that bullshit, you'll find a lot of very different information of what was going on. I've talked about it before, like glyphs and stories of things where they may describe it weird because of what time period it was, but if you really think about it, in fact, when I listen to religious text, it's almost like I'm hearing it in a completely different way now. A lot of the shit they say, I'm like, oh, that's a ship, or oh, a chariot of fire. That sounds like maybe like one of those levitation sled things that you can stand on. Like, there's so many things now where when I hear these religious texts, I'm like, oh, fuck, dude, that's literal. They're just saying it weird. You know? A lot of shit like that. Anyway. So, I think that along with all that, though, there's a reason why you see these societies and orders, you know, kind of pop up out of necessity. On some levels, I feel like maybe it's potentially to like protect the information and to keep it from just being everywhere and being perverted. But then in other situations, I think it's a bunch of other shit, you know. Greed. A lot of those groups are very obsessed with like bloodlines and shit like that. And a lot of the time, they're the ones that are taught and are able to teach how to read grimoires and understand, because back then, as I said, you could be at the very least ostracized, but you could be tortured, you could be arrested, you could be killed for even having text that referenced magic or alchemy or sometimes poetry. If it came off, they were nuts, apparently, by going by the accounts. And so you had to form these societies and orders. And so those same societies and orders and their remnants are the ones that can teach you how to read those grimoires. People just buy grimoires now and try shit, and that's real fucking dangerous. Just just so you know, that's not smart. And then you have people that recreate grimoires or translate grimoires in text, and they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Zechariah Sitchin. And then you end up with dangerous ideology and dangerous shit happening after that. You could, depending on how that shit's used or weaponized, you can end up with a whole generation of cult followers that will, they're just losing it, going nuts. Current, happening right now. Zachariah Sitchin, it's your fault. So, but then there's the concept of mystery schools. Mystery schools, I would like to find one that is actually real. There are many that claim to have mystery schools right now, but really they're just teaching people esoterics and hermeticism and sort of occult information that you can usually find by yourself most of the time, especially if it's on the internet. I haven't actually subscribed to any of those things, but honestly, what I think is that if one of you were teaching some real shit, some real occult magic, you were teaching how to be a magic user, not a magic practitioner, which, okay, let me say this. To me, a magic user can do shit, can do physical things with magic. And I don't mean David Blaine and shit like that, although that dude, something is up with that dude. And those that are like him, street magic. I'm not talking about street magic. I'm talking about actually doing real magic, as it is portrayed in fictional movies. To me, that is magic use, using magic. The shit that other people are doing with the clip off and the holy guardian angel shit, which, the intent anyway is psychology and self-work, shadow work. That's not magic use, that's practicing magic. At least that's the way that I view it. That's my view. That's not an official thing. You're not going to go find that anywhere, I don't think. But that is the way that I view it. There's a difference between magic use and magic practicing. And most mystery schools that are operational now, especially if they advertise openly, 99% positive that that's not a mystery school. That's just a dude or a group that are maybe well studied, maybe well researched a little bit, and have some stuff they can teach you that may or may not work. At least not in the way that you intend on it to work. But that doesn't make me give up. I still very much, want to find a mystery school, or technically it would be have them find me, I guess, because that's kind of how that works, I believe. If it's still the way it has always been, or not always, because it used to be before the Crusades, pre-Roman Catholic, pre-monotheism, that shit was more in the open, and of course they would advertise because it was a school. It's a school. But currently, if they're advertising as a mystery school, that is a oxymoron. That doesn't make any sense. Same thing for the webinars and the, all that stuff is tainted, and a big reason for that, in my opinion, I don't know whether it was that magic aspects were broken up and different aspects were given to different mystery schools, which seems possible to me, or if it was just broken up and given to different cultures, kind of like Qigong, Qi is with the Eastern practices, Hoodoo, Voodoo is with, African practices, IFA. There's different aspects of shit that some of it is just semantics for things and it's the same shit, or some of it is like this aspect is over here, like chi, this aspect is over here, like the ritual magic and ceremonial magic, and realistically you don't have enough time or opportunity to soak all of that up to the extent that you need to soak it up to be able to then use magic as one. Pretty sure that's what it is. And you may say that there's some bloodline stuff where you can just use magic, or you may say that there's specific orders where they do allow people in and it's sort of open, but you gotta show me proof of that. I just don't see the proof of that anywhere. So I already talked about the ultra terrestrials and trickster stuff. What I will say, there's a blurred line between the left and the right hand path and the left hand path, and there's an illusion of separation there. I've actually said this before, where you think that you're different, and you guys kind of like talk shit on each other, but a lot of you are doing the same stuff and just call it different shit. And I don't think that's necessarily news. I think a lot of beings that actually study these things know that, but like, on the other hand, there's a lot of surface people that maybe are even happy being on the surface. They're not actually interested in doing anything. Maybe they just like the community or the feeling of belonging, or they think that they want to like manifest some shit, because manifesting and abundance, if I hear those words anymore, my head will fucking explode. But they hear those words and they want to do those things, but they don't understand that, like, the more understanding and studying that you do, the more that you are able to capture those capabilities. Because it's a lot like science or alchemy. You can look at a symbol and think that you understand what that symbol means, but then you research and study for another year or two, and then you see more shit in the same symbol, and again, I'll put in the community section on the YouTube, one of the examples of that is that Baphomet symbol, not the one that the Church of Satan and all those idiots use. The original semblance, the original iteration of the Baphomet symbol has the above, as above, so below. It has the caduceus, the snake rising. There's fertility shit in there. There's the, duality of the sun and the moon. There's a lot in that Baphomet symbol, and that's all it was meant to be. It wasn't meant to be for some demon or devil or any of that shit. It was a symbol to convey hermetics, and do it in an occult, kind of like esoteric way. Because again, if you were caught doing that shit or talking about that shit, there was a real likelihood that you could get hurt or killed over it. So had to come up with ways to do the thing, I put down etymology and wordplay, but I think there's plenty of people that are kind of playing around with that and mystifying people into their cults, and at the very least mystifying them out of their pocket, the money out of their pockets. That Jordan Maxwell stuff, and I'm not talking shit on Jordan Maxwell, I like his work, obviously. He helped me realize a lot of stuff about admiralty law and legal fictions and you know, many things that are at the very least ways to explain what we are living in within America, at least. But if you speak the English language, like that, it still applies to you, even if you're not in America. The English language is riddled, just wrought with, dripping with, you know, spell work. And many times it comes in threes. You know, there. Ball. Meat. What are some more? Awake. I think that one might just be two. There's a lot of them, though. I mean, it's very obviously filled with trickery, you know. Or even to go down a different path, like Hollywood, the place Hollywood is making reference to the holly tree, which was used to make wands, magic wands. There's a lot of stuff, and I mean, so a lot of these things people learn in little like tidbits, and then don't go much farther past that. They're just like, oh, you know, it's a conspiracy, which is true. Not shitting on them, but those things go deeper and deeper and deeper in their meaning, and it'll make you feel kind of gross. Like I don't like that I speak English. I don't like that I have to speak English because it's not a good language. English wasn't designed in your best interest. It wasn't designed in a benevolent fashion. And I would be willing to bet that the other languages are similar. Language itself, to be honest, that's, if nothing else, language and having to speak language is a fall in density anyway, because it's very likely that we didn't speak. We, you know, spoke telepathically and empathetically. We felt each other. We felt each other's emotions intuitively. We didn't have to be told how the other felt or speak words. And then we fell in density and started having to scribe like cuneiform and hieroglyphs and glyphs and runes. And then we fell again and started having to write words and speak, you know, and we just kept falling in density, or whatever you want to call that, consciousness, semantics. I prefer consciousness, actually. That density shit is kind of, for no other reason than it's just kind of getting on my nerves how trendy that's becoming, the density dimension shit. Oh, we're in the 4D now. They don't even know what that means. You were already in the 4D. You were already in the 4D. Time is a dimension. Time is a dimension, bruh. God damn it. I'm sorry. So what I wrote is, at the very least, the English language, but I kind of anticipate and theorize that all language is like a bar in the prison cell. It's like the glass of your zoo cage. You know, it's built into. It's not a bug. It's a feature. It's built in to keep you locked into this, so that those that are utilizing us and kind of farming us don't have to worry as much about us kind of like, you know, breaking free, or whatever you want to call it. But it seems very much like that to me. And the thought that you can master any, I won't say any language, the thought that you can master English at the very least and do any magic that could benefit you in such a way, to me is silly. Those that have lots of money and stuff and claim to practice magic, I mean, they probably do practice magic, not use magic. And then on top of that dumbness, they're not just getting those things. They're not manifesting shit, bro. They're giving up physical stuff, like themselves. They're giving up their own body and potentially their divinity or soul, if they have one, to begin with, and trading it for shit, and then telling you that they manifested that they manifested it. And that's dumb, you know. That is dumb. I think many are kind of seeing that, but I think the ones that see it the most are the Abrahamic folks, because they're looking for it that hard. But there are some that are just kind of like whatever, truth seekers or whatever, that also notice that they don't get that shit for free. They're not manifesting it themselves. They're trading it for, and it's not a good trade, you know. Many times when beings are practicing magic, whether it be ceremonial or, you know, ritualistic, not ritual, but ritualistic magic, they have to be in a hypnagogic state, or they have to take some sort of psychotropic or hallucinogen or psychedelic. And it's not to say that that means that it's not real, but at the same time, though, a lot of that is coming from the thing. It's not coming from the thing being real. It's coming from the hypnagogic state, or it's coming from the mushroom, or it's coming from the acid, or it's coming from the, you know, wormwood or absinthe, whatever. There's a whole bunch of concoctions and chemicals and molecules that can bring you there. DMT, but I think a lot of it kind of linchpins on belief, way more than intent when it gets to, when you're talking about that specifically. And, you know, I think that's fine, but then when you start to lie to yourself and then others about that, and you're like, man, I summoned Marduk last night and told him that he was going to start bringing me catfish sandwiches every day. I don't know where that came from. They're lying, you know what I mean? That's most likely not true. And if it is happening to them, I would try to get them to stop doing whatever they're doing, because they have more important shit to focus on, like who is broadcasting that goofy shit into their head. You know, a lot of times, more times than not, it's something else. It's not what those that are practicing think it is. And that's not, again, I'm not trying to be a hater, I'm not trying to bum you out or anything like that, but to just ignore the other aspects of a realm, that's not beneficial to you. Because you can ignore the thing, but that doesn't make it go away. I mean, I don't know who would believe that. Talked about Tesla and Crowley already. Madame Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky co-created the Theosophical Society. And though I see some benefit to the Theosophical Society, they also believe in shit that I don't believe in. Like, they saw reincarnation as like kind of like a gift, because they were into the Indian mysteries, the Eastern mysteries, like Buddhism and Hinduism and shit. I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just me. Not talking shit on Buddhists or Hindus or, you know, anyone that likes those things. If you want to keep coming back here, be my guest. I don't like that. I'm not going to be doing that anymore, if I've ever done it, because I don't remember any past lives. I think that's potentially just some shit y'all have been told over and over again. Again, technologies are there. Not trying to take away from anybody's experience. If you remember past lives, good for you. But what I would say is, for those that remember past lives or have past life regressions or, anything to those effects, that's fine. That's perfectly okay for you. But you don't need to come to me and try to make me believe you or believe in that. You don't need to do that. Believe it for you. That's all that matters. You know, if we're in a conversation and you bring that up, I then have the right to, in a civil manner, say, I don't believe in that, and I have no connection to that. I have no memories of any past lives, nor do I have any feeling or inclination to think that I am in a multiverse where there are a whole bunch of me's. I don't believe in that either. I reject that completely. And I'll say again, I think that that is also potentially, probably, a psyop to get beings to fracture their divinity, to fracture themselves. Because you do have the capability to manifest. It's just been slowed way down because of that fall in consciousness that I mentioned before. So you can manifest. And if you teach yourself or convince yourself that there's a whole bunch of yous out there, then there will be. And you know what that's going to do? You're going to give pieces of the same spark that the first gave to you to each one of those other yous. And you're gonna suffer that. You're gonna suffer the consequences of that. So again, I will declare for myself, I am the only gamma. There is no other gamma. There has never ever been another gamma, and never will there be another gamma. I am sovereign, I am eternal, and just kind of stuck in this place, whatever this is, for now. You know? I have no memories or connections to any kind of altars or past lives or any shit like that. If I did, I'd be honest about it. And that doesn't take away from anybody else's experience. I'm just saying what I think and my experience. So, just putting that out there. And the last thing I'll say about that is, it doesn't do you any good to lie about that. Because you saying that with this throat chakra that is very powerful, that's fucking weird to do, man. Even believing it with this guy, even telling yourself that shit over and over again, still not good. So it does you no good to lie about that, or to LARP, live action role play that shit. It's bad for you. Not a good thing to do. But if it's real for you, good for you, I guess. I don't even want that to be true. To be there, have a bunch of fucking me's. Why the fuck would I want that? Or to have lived 700 times over and why the fuck would I want that? This is a terrible place. I don't want to fucking come back here, you know? You can find the goodness in it. You can find some stuff to like make you feel better, or it's complex. That's why I talk about the good place and shit. But I don't want to come back here. I'm not gonna like unplug myself or end myself or anything, because that's also ill-advised. Don't do that. But I can be honest and say I don't want to respawn. I don't want to fucking come back here. No, I'm good on that. Anyway, the she founded Theosophy, and it was kind of a complex practice, not a religion. Neoplatonism, which I'm into, Plato. A theorist, which I also am, which is essentially just saying you come up with theories. There's a lot of stuff that the Theosophical Society and Madame Blavatsky are about that I'm also about, but there is also some other shit that they're about that I'm not about. Um, and it's really just aspects. It's not the entirety of it. Uh, Western era, esotericism and occultism. Uh, yeah, I mean, I'm into those things. I study those things. I mentioned the Indian and Eastern mysteries. I think that there are some aspects of that, and this was a long time ago, so they had less, potentially had less information available to them. At the very least, they had a different situation. I'll say it like that. They had different conditions, different energies around, different entities, both material and immaterial, non-material is a better way, is the right word. Um, they're also about emanationism, which I talk about being an emanation of the first, but their view of it is strange to me because I view myself as an emanation of the first, much like, you are an emanation of your parents. It doesn't mean that you degrade every, like, my kid is an emanation of me, which means that my kid is an emanation of my parents. Still, you know, but that doesn't mean that I am a degraded version of my mom, and he is a even more degraded version than I am of my mom. That doesn't make sense to me. So I believe in emanationism, but not in the way that they describe it or define it. Um, I am again a sovereign being. I am a child of the first. You know, I'm not I'm not a version of the first. I'm a child of the first. The first was alone and wanted essentially not just company but family. You know, a lot of the things that I feel like people say about what the first was and what the first thought and felt and all that shit doesn't make any sense to me. This is an omnipotent, you know, an omnipotent, benevolent kind of like knows knows the stuff being. So for you to say it wanted to experience itself and it wanted to experience things is to me correct in a way, but you a lot of the time when beings say that, they say it like almost as if the first wouldn't know what those things feel like or look like, and that's dumb. That's stupid. It's almost like offensive in a way, you know. Anyway, I think that that's enough, and I'll probably talk about this again at some point. Kind of on. I've been talking about a lot of physical stuff in a way. Still metaphysical, I guess. But I wanted to talk about some, this kind of metaphysical stuff. I think I'm going to talk about mushrooms next. I'm about to watch two movies that I love that have to do with kind of horror scenarios that have to do with mushrooms. In the Earth is one, and Gaia is the other one. Both have to do with mushrooms, and they are both cool as fuck. Anyway, I love you, and if you, again, would like to donate to the channel, the PayPal's in the description, also in the description of the channel. The email is my name at gmail.com. Same thing for the Instagram. I have cool shit on the way, and I'm very excited about it. I'll announce that first interview that I have very soon, once it's in the books and scheduled. Hopefully the other interview potential will get back to me soon, but also I'm giving that space because there's a very serious situation attached, and I hope that she feels better. But I will, obviously he needs to take all the time he can to be there for her. So yeah, I'll let you know. And I laid peace, bye bye.